Just to the Gas Station by Omnitrix12. This is an Eye of the Dragon production. All characters and settings belong to Disney or Omnitrix12. All rights reserved. I've seen some devilish things. That's what turned my hair gray. One doesn't become a magician easily. Uncle Andrew, The Magician's Nephew by C.S. Lewis. Taelia had had some strange experiences in her life. Confusing, unsettling, even terrifying. Then there was that night. The night before Thanksgiving during her sophomore year at college. Classes had been lax, but she'd burned the midnight oil, or midnight coffee as the case might be, finishing a program. To say she was dog-tired would be an understatement, not to mention a rather impolite wordplay. Now she was downing another pumpkin spice with a shot of blueberry and 3 shots of espresso, navigating rain and holiday traffic to get to Pine Forest. A car swept by uncomfortably close, causing her to swerve. She turned her head on instinct to yell at the driver, but the words died on her tongue. "Travis?" She only caught a fleeting glimpse before the driver passed heedlessly by. She could have sworn, though, that it was him. She slowed down, eager to distance herself and trying to collect her thoughts. He was moving on. He didn't notice her. Maybe it wasn't him. She let him hurry on anyway. Evil X or not, that driver was one mammal she could stand to avoid. A flash of neon down the road caught her eye, taking her mind blessedly off ghosts from the past. Through the drizzle, she made out a teenage zebra waving a roadside vest. Close by him lay a car nearly sideways in the ditch. Taelia's already tense nerves tightened like bowstrings. She knew it was dangerous stopping like this, especially at night, and especially for someone bigger and stronger than herself. It was a good way to get robbed, or worse. "It is raining," a whisper from her conscience countered. She pulled over and rolled the window down halfway, locking the door to be safe. "Are you okay?" she called. "Hit a slick patch," he replied, gesturing behind him. "I see that," she agreed. Is someone coming?" He shook his head. "I've been trying, but I can't get a signal." She chewed her lip. She didn't have a cell phone. One more reason to be careful on a night like this. I know," he empathized, raising his host. "Strange guy late at night equals bad mojo. But just to the next gas station or a rest stop, I'll pay you." Survival instinct rebelled. The last time she defied her better judgment. But that was hardly the same thing. Besides, now that she'd bought Ellen's old car, she had room if he didn't mind a tight squeeze. Who knew how long it would be before someone else would help him? At last, better nature won out over better judgment. "Hop in the back. No charge." Despite being cramped in the rear seat, the zebra seemed relieved just to be moving and out of the rain. He introduced himself as Eli, and the two even fell into some pleasant conversation. Taelia's enthusiasm dipped anew, though, when he ventured to remark that she seemed on edge. "It's nothing," she assured him. I thought I saw someone earlier today." "Escaped convict from the news?" he asked, seemingly as a joke. Not that far off, she thought, biting her lip. "Ex-boyfriend," she clarified, not sure why she was saying this to a stranger. "Let's just say it didn't end on a good note." Eli quieted for a moment. "I'm sorry to hear that," he offered sympathetically. "Do you want to talk about it? Did he hurt you?" She swallowed. "If you don't mind, I'd rather not." "That's okay," he replied, raising his hose again. "I shouldn't be nosing into your business anyway, but, well, for what it's worth, you helped me out. If you've got friends who can be there for you, let them know, okay? You shouldn't have to shoulder it alone." She knew he was trying to be kind, but the conversation was making her uncomfortable. Then, as an almost welcome diversion, another shape appeared at the roadside just at the edge of her headlights. "Now what?" she asked, slowing down. As they drew near, the figure proved to be a female anteater, waving a paw and pointing her thumb claw in the air. Slightly annoyed, Talia pulled to a stop. "Can you help me?" the lady asked, seemingly agitated. "Someone flagged me down and stole my car. I need to get to town." Talia's ears shot up. "Someone stole your car?" "Yes, I have to get help." This time there was no hesitation. "Get in," she commanded. The woman did get in, starting slightly at the sight of Eli in the back seat. Eli just waved, as much as his cramped position allowed. "Guess this is the night for needing a ride," he announced, clearly trying to put a bright face on the situation. Talia couldn't help thinking that this was a pretty thoughtless demeanor talking to someone whose car had just been stolen. But she decided to focus on trying to help the woman. "Have you been able to get a call out?" she asked. "Phone's dead," the anteater replied, glancing again into the back seat. Eli held up his phone with a helpless look on his face. "Sorry, I've still got no signal." The whole thing was beginning to wear on Talia, but she didn't say anything. "Hey, there's a cop car just ahead," Eli pointed out, indicating a cruiser parked on one of the little mini-roads between the Northway and the Southway. "Oh, perfect." Talia switched lanes to pull to the stopover. "Aren't regular cars not allowed in those?" the anteater asked nervously as they pulled in. "I think they'll turn a blind eye when it's an emergency," Eli pointed out. Talia shifted into park as a wolf emerged from the cruiser. "Hey, you can't park here," he yelled at her as she rolled down her window. "I'm here to report a car theft," she called back, gesturing to her passenger. But at that moment, her passenger side door abruptly opened. "Hey, what are you doing?" Eli shouted as the anteater jumped out and ran for the trees. The officer locked onto the movement as well and raced after the woman, quickly catching up to her. To Talia's surprise, the anteater turned as if to retaliate, but after a brief struggle mostly hidden by the wolf's body and the bad light, the officer emerged literally on top and pinned his opponent. "What in the world?" asked Talia, unbuckling her seatbelt. "I'd just stay in the car if I were you," Eli suggested. "Something about this doesn't add up." "Oh, and you might want to close her door." As a rhino got out to join his partner, Talia realized Eli might have a point. The rhino went to the wolf, helped him subdue the thrashing female, and then had a brief conference. It was some minutes before the wolf returned to the cruiser, busied himself with something there, and then approached Talia's car. "Officer Wolford," he introduced himself. "Are you all right, ma'am?" "I'm fine," she replied. "But what in the world is going on here? That woman's car was just stolen." "That's what she wanted you to think," he replied. "I take it you don't know her, but according to her license and our records, she's a serial carjacker." Talia's dropped. "What?" "That's right," he replied, looking back to his partner, who was now carrying the anteater to the cruiser. "She fakes being stranded, gets someone to take pity on her, then steals their car. We found a gun on her person, and I just verified she's wanted for armed robberies like this one in 3 different states. It's a wonder she didn't rob you as soon as you stopped." Talia was speechless and felt as if she'd been knocked over the head. "I have to be dreaming," she thought. Evidently, Officer Wolford recognized her wearied state. "I'm going to need a statement from you," he said. "But for now, I'll just run your license so we know how to get a hold of you." "Of course," she replied, finding her tongue and digging out her license. "But I just can't believe it." "Well, I suggest you not pick up any more hitchhikers," he replied before returning to his car. Talia's brain was still reeling. She had a gun? It was almost too much to process. Too much. Almost taking her back to being double-crossed by Travis. "Maybe you should ask these guys for a lift," Eli suggested. "You look pretty shook up." Talia shook her head. "No, I don't want to ride in the back with that woman," she replied. She didn't add that after a shock like this, she doubted she'd sleep for a week, never mind on the way home to her family. Evidently, the police were not as rattled by the whole thing. It only took a short while for them to finish running her license and get it back to her. She wondered that they never asked for a statement from Eli, but just to get out of there was such a relief that she didn't dwell on it. "Crazy night, huh?" asked the zebra when they were back underway. "This is insane," she replied. "Why do things like this keep happening?" "Mammals can be jerks like that," Eli replied. "But hey, it was a pretty lucky break you found those cops when you did." Talia didn't see any luck in the situation except that Eli made no further effort to talk about it, and that it wasn't long before a gas station came into sight. "I guess I'll let you off here so you can call for a tow truck," she remarked as she pulled in. No reply. Maybe he had fallen asleep. "I said they should have a phone so you can call a tow truck," she repeated as she put the car in park. Still no answer, and when she turned to look, she saw why. The back seat was empty. "Eli?" A search of the gas station revealed that Eli hadn't slipped out while she was parking, and after asking several mammals who looked at her like she was crazy, she finally went on her way. By the time she got to her parents' house, it was all so surreal that she said nothing about the matter and simply went to bed as soon as possible. Thanksgiving Day passed without incident, and she decided to comment only on almost getting carjacked. She was still trying to convince herself that Eli had just managed to make himself scarce at the gas station, though how and why continued to eat at the back of her mind. The day after Thanksgiving, she went to the police station to give her statement about the attempted theft. There the mystery deepened when she asked if the receptionist knew anything about Eli. What followed was a long wait and then an interview with two officers who explained that although the cops she had encountered that night said they didn't see anyone in her back seat, the anteater had said she didn't try to rob Talia immediately because it would have been 2 against 1. She then asked about Eli's overturned car, but after checking they said that none of the car accidents on that highway that night had involved him or any other zebra, and that as none lived out in Pine Forest, they couldn't see why he'd have been on that stretch of road. They still took her report and promised to be on the lookout for him, but from that day on she never heard anything back. For days, then weeks, and finally years afterward, she would jerk a little every time she saw a zebra, or sometimes even just movement in the corner of her eye. She half expected Eli to show up again and explain what had happened, but he never did. She never did tell anyone else about him, not even her family. As time passed, the shock of the experience faded to a lingering sense of profound confusion in her mind. It was as if the whole thing had been planned somehow, to catch the thief and keep her safe. But that was impossible, wasn't it? There was one other change, though she never quite noticed it herself. After that night's peculiar run-in, she was a little less paranoid about what to do if Travis, or any other malcontent, should cross her path again. And there you have it, folks. Omnitrix 12, a.k.a. Dragon Tamer 2000, a.k.a. Lighthouse, is back in action. Sorry to have been out of touch so long, but for those of you who don't know, I decided to enlist in the Army National Guard, and training has been, well, rather time-consuming. By the way, if any of you all decide to enlist, I'd be happy to be your reference. The inspiration for this story came to me out of the blue just a couple of days ago, and while it bears elements of a number of urban legends, notably the Phantom Hitchhiker and another about a man saved from one carjacker by another taking Christmas off, I can't presently recall exactly how it came to mind. I do know that I wanted to write something about Talia learning to confront fear, and the idea of her doing so by taking pity on a stranger was too good not to use. Happy Thanksgiving, and travel safely.